Have you ever felt that flutter in your stomach, that unique sensation when someone you're interested in is nearby? Most likely, yes. And chances are, at some point you've asked yourself whether that person feels the same way about you. Today I invite you to open your mind and join me on a deep journey into the unconscious, guided by the revolutionary ideas of psychologist Carl Jung, to uncover those subtle yet powerful signs that clearly indicate that special person feels something much stronger for you than you think. Carl Jung believed that much of our communication takes place on an unconscious level. It's not words that reveal the truth, but actions, gestures, glances, and small behaviors that often go unnoticed by our conscious mind, yet carry immense meaning. Today I'll reveal those specific signs that confirm someone's deep interest in you. Pay close attention. These signs could completely shift your perspective. The first sign lies in the way this person looks at you. According to Jung, the eyes are the gateway to the soul, a reflection of the unconscious that cannot be entirely controlled. Observe carefully. Do you notice that when they speak to you, they hold your gaze longer than usual? When someone feels a deep and genuine interest in you, their eyes seek prolonged connection, trying to explore every detail of your face, as if your eyes held the secret to truly knowing you. Also, pay special attention to how their pupils dilate when they're with you. Pupil dilation is an automatic, unconscious biological response to something we're deeply attracted to. It's impossible to consciously control and is an unmistakable sign of the attraction and interest that person feels toward you. The second sign is even more subtle, yet incredibly powerful. Carl Jung believed that our unconscious constantly seeks closeness to what attracts us or what we identify with. Ask yourself, does that person always seem to find excuses to be near you? Do they casually appear in places you frequent? Do they find reasons to ask you questions, even insignificant ones? Or maybe they lightly touch your arm or shoulder while talking. These subtle physical touches are no accident. Jung revealed that they are manifestations of the unconscious, seeking intimacy and deep emotional connection. A person who is genuinely interested in you will try to reduce physical distance to strengthen emotional closeness. The third sign lies in how they respond to your emotions. If someone truly feels something deep for you, they'll immediately notice any small shift in your mood. Carl Jung explained that, on an unconscious level, people develop deep empathy toward those they care about. This person probably picks up quickly on whether you're sad, happy, or uncomfortable, and shows genuine interest in understanding how you feel and supporting you. Think for a moment. When you've had a tough day, does this person try to cheer you up or comfort you in a sincere way? If so, you're looking at a powerful sign that their interest goes far beyond the surface, reaching into very deep emotional levels. The fourth sign is about synchronicity. Carl Jung spoke of a phenomenon called synchronicity, where two seemingly unrelated events are meaningfully connected, creating a sense of destiny or a predestined bond. Take a moment to reflect on your encounters with this person. Have you noticed frequent coincidences in tastes, interests, or thoughts, as if you were mirrors of each other? If that person often says things like, "What a coincidence," or seems surprised by how much you have in common, what you're really experiencing is a strong unconscious connection. It's the unconscious creating invisible threads to bring together two souls that feel a profound affinity. The fifth sign is about body language. Jung believed that our body expresses what the unconscious wants to reveal, even when we try to consciously hide it. Observe if this person adopts open postures when they're with you, arms and legs uncrossed, torso facing you, even leaning slightly in your direction. These gestures indicate that unconsciously they are open to you and willing to connect emotionally. Now, have you noticed whether they unconsciously mirror your movements or gestures? This is called unconscious mirroring, and it's a powerful sign of empathy and deep connection. When someone is truly interested in you, their body naturally aligns with yours, creating an invisible but palpable harmony. So far, we've uncovered several clear signs that reveal much more than you might have imagined. However, there are still more equally powerful signs identified by Carl Jung that may surprise you even more. Pay close attention, because the next part could completely transform how you understand relationships and how you interpret the signals you receive from that special person. This is where a more intriguing dimension of the collective unconscious, so deeply explored by Jung, begins to reveal itself. There is a unique connection that manifests when someone listens to you with true presence, with a silence full of meaning, not just waiting for their turn to speak, but seeming to absorb every word you say. That kind of active listening, which requires no visible effort, is a sign of inner openness, a genuine interest that doesn't come from obligation, but from a desire to know you at your core. Carl Jung asserted that when someone represents a powerful archetypal figure in our life, such as the anima or animus, the soul begins to respond with a kind of inner recognition that transcends reason. That person may feel strangely familiar, as if you've known them before, even though you're just getting to know them. If, when you're with them, time seems to flow differently, or their energy lingers with you even after they've left, don't ignore it. It's not romantic magic. It's the unconscious resonating deeply. Another powerful sign appears during moments of vulnerability. Notice if this person feels comfortable sharing their doubts, fears, or past wounds with you. Jung taught that the soul opens only to what it perceives as safe, as an extension of itself. If someone starts to reveal their true self to you without masks, even confessing things they've never told anyone else, you're witnessing a very clear manifestation of deep trust and genuine emotional interest. And let's not forget something vital, how that person reacts when you share your achievements, your ideas, or your dreams. Jung spoke of individuation as a process of becoming whole. If that person supports you, encourages your growth, and celebrates your progress as if it were their own, it's not just sympathy, it's a form of emotional connection that arises from the unconscious, where your very essence holds sacred value for the other. But there's also a sign that, while it may seem contradictory, is one of the most revealing: discomfort. Sometimes someone who feels something very deep for you doesn't know how to handle it and may act with a kind of emotional clumsiness. They might seem nervous, avoid eye contact at key moments, or appear distracted. Jung explained that what is repressed in the unconscious often manifests ambivalently. So if you notice contradictions in their behavior, if one day they seem very close and the next distant, it might not be disinterest, but rather an internal struggle taking place within that person. Unconscious energy is powerful. Often, without realizing it, our dreams start to be filled with the image of that person. Jung analyzed dreams as open windows to the soul, and when someone appears repeatedly in our dreams, it's a sign that they hold a deep psychic role in our inner world. Maybe you haven't noticed it yet, but if you dream about that person and those dream encounters feel intense, emotional, or meaningful, your unconscious is telling you something your mind hasn't fully processed. And beyond the psychological, there's a dimension that Jung connected to the spiritual. When one soul is touched by another, the body reacts as well. Subtle changes in heart rate, a feeling of being more alive when that person is near, or a strange sense of peace just from hearing their voice. These are psychosomatic manifestations that reveal a deep emotional affinity. It's not fantasy or self-suggestion. It's a symphony between your unconscious and theirs, striking notes that can't always be explained with words. True interest isn't always expressed through clear declarations or classic romantic gestures. Sometimes it hides in what seems insignificant, a lingering pause before saying goodbye, a spontaneous question about your personal tastes, or a smile that appears for no apparent reason when they see you. Each of these actions may be orchestrated by the depths of the unconscious, where the most authentic and lasting connections are formed, and there are still more signs that Carl Jung helped to decode, signals most people overlook because they lie just at the edge of the invisible. Let's go even deeper into that hidden universe, because what's coming next could open your eyes in a way you never expected. There are moments when the mind runs out of words, but the body keeps speaking. Jung believed that the unconscious expresses itself through symbolism, and that includes subtle physical reactions. Watch closely. Does this person touch their neck, adjust their clothing, run a hand through their hair, or fidget with an object when they're around you? These gestures, far from random, are expressions of internal tension between what they feel and what they can't say. They are movements born from the need to control an emotion that can no longer be contained. Even language, when it comes out clumsily, can be a clue. Notice if that person sometimes says things out of place, contradicts themselves, or laughs unexpectedly. It's not ordinary nervousness, it's a defense mechanism of the unconscious trying to protect what it feels without fully exposing it. Jung taught that in the conflict between the conscious and unconscious, the most genuine emotions are born. If you see that struggle in the way they speak to you, it's likely that what they feel is stronger than they're able to express. There's also something that often goes unnoticed: the need to remember. If that person remembers small details you've long forgotten, things you said in casual conversation, your favorite food, a place you only mentioned once, don't take it lightly. Remembering is an act of the soul. When we care, when someone matters to us, our unconscious attention sharpens and we start recording what comes from the other as if it were precious. That selective memory reveals more than words ever could. And then there's a sign you can't see, but you can feel: anticipation. Do you notice that person seems to predict what you need? Do they offer you a coat before you feel cold? Ask if you've eaten before you say you're hungry? Text you just as you were thinking about them? It's not telepathy, it's unconscious connection. Jung spoke of subtle energy fields, how our emotions can extend beyond our physical body and touch others without direct contact. If someone anticipates how you feel, it's because they're sensing you beyond what's visible. Sometimes what the unconscious can't hide reveals itself in the music that person listens to, the books they start reading, the quotes they share without knowing why. They begin to resonate with your interests, your ideas, your symbols. That's not coincidence. Jung referred to this as psychic transference, a process in which two inner worlds begin to influence one another. If you notice that your preferences start to appear in that person without you ever mentioning them, it means a fusion is happening at a very deep level. And pay close attention to how that person acts when someone else shows interest in you. They may not say anything openly, but their body reacts. They tense up, their tone of voice changes, they avert their gaze or fall silent. That silence speaks volumes, Jung would say. That's where the shadow appears, the part of ourselves we don't control, but that reveals what we truly feel. If you notice restrained jealousy, subtle discomfort, or a quiet urge to mark their territory without being aggressive, what you're witnessing is the unconscious revealing a desire for exclusive connection. Another subtle but powerful sign appears when that person can share silence with you without feeling uncomfortable. It's not about filling the space with words, it's about simply being. Just being. Jung believed that the soul finds rest in the presence of someone with whom it doesn't need to explain itself. If the two of you can share silence without pressure, if peace surrounds you, even when no words are spoken, then that presence is speaking louder than any conversation ever could. And if in the midst of all this they've shared some of their wounds, their mistakes, or their broken parts with you, listen closely. That's not something shown to just anyone. Jung said that we only reveal our shadow to those we unconsciously perceive as symbols of transformation. If someone opens up to you in this way, it's because they unconsciously feel that you represent a safe space for their most vulnerable truth. Don't take it lightly. There is more, much more. The unconscious is an ocean full of symbols, hidden gestures, and invisible pulses. What comes next will take you even deeper, because when someone desires you with their soul, their most authentic language is not spoken with the mouth, it is revealed in every act they cannot control. There's a kind of connection that sometimes reveals itself in the most unexpected moments, when you're absent. Jung explained that the unconscious learns to value more clearly what is no longer in sight. When someone feels your absence more intensely than they can express, their behavior changes. They may become more restless, more reflective, more distant with others, and as soon as you return, they seem to regain their spark, their lightness, as if your presence brings back a missing part of themselves. That emotional shift isn't just nostalgia, it's the unconscious recognizing a bond that is invisible but deeply real. Sometimes that person unintentionally becomes your emotional echo. They don't just remember what you said, they start using your expressions, your phrases, even your tone. This subtle mirroring is one of the most powerful signs of unconscious resonance. Jung described it as a process of symbolic identification, where the other begins to integrate parts of you into their own narrative without realizing it. It's a way of keeping you close, of feeling connected even when you're not physically there. And there's an even deeper manifestation, the creative impulse. When someone is emotionally moved by your energy, they often begin to create. They might write, paint, compose music, or simply become more expressive without a clear reason. Jung saw creativity as a valve of the unconscious, a way to channel what cannot be logically explained. If you notice that this person has started expressing themselves more artistically since you've come into their life, it's because you're activating internal zones that had long been dormant. There are also moments of pause, not of indifference, but of silent observation. Some people, when they feel something deep, pull back a little, not because they don't want to connect, but because they're trying to understand what's happening inside them. Jung explained that when the unconscious encounters someone who represents something archetypal or transformative, it doesn't always respond with immediate excitement, but rather with a kind of internal stillness. So if this person sometimes watches you quietly, as if trying to decipher something, it's because their soul is trying to give shape to what it feels. And when that connection is truly authentic, even physical spaces begin to change. Jung spoke of how symbols manifest themselves in our surroundings. If this person starts inviting you to meaningful places, shares their home, their favorite spots, their most personal corners, it's not just a social gesture, it's an unconscious way of opening up their world to you, of emotional integrity. Whoever shares their personal spaces is also sharing their story. There's another sign that not many people recognize, the emotional tension before seeing you. If you notice that person gets nervous, prepares carefully, or even avoids meeting you without any logical reason, don't take it as disinterest. Jung used to say that the soul trembles before what it truly desires. Many times, unconscious love first shows up as fear, as an urge to escape before surrendering to vulnerability. If someone seems to be dealing with an inner battle before seeing you, it's because you represent something greater than anything they've faced before. And when you finally meet, pay attention to their body language when saying goodbye. It's not the same as any ordinary farewell. Watch for a body that resists leaving, a step that hesitates, a final glance that lingers, an extra word tossed in just to stretch the moment. All of that is the soul expressing its reluctance to let go. Jung said the soul seeks permanence where it feels at home. And if the body doesn't want to leave, it's because the unconscious has found refuge in your presence. And we haven't even touched on the most mysterious form of all, those coincidences that seem far too precise. They appear when you're thinking of that person and they text you at that exact moment, or when you dream about them and then see them the next day, or when something they said shows up again in another place, as if the entire universe were conspiring to keep you connected. Jung called these synchronicities, and far from being mere coincidences, they're signs of a hidden order, an invisible web between two souls that are more connected than they realize. And this isn't the end, because when the unconscious begins to reveal its truth, it does so little by little, in fragments, in symbols, in barely noticeable signs. But if you know how to see, if you know how to listen with your soul, you'll discover that there's much more beneath the surface of what appears to be simple attraction. What comes next might be exactly what you needed to understand what their heart has been screaming in silence. Sometimes the most obvious things aren't found in what's said, but in what's held back, in what remains unspoken, in the glance that drops when it meets yours, in the message they almost send but delete, in the confession that hovers on their lips but doesn't come out. Jung said the unconscious doesn't always express itself clearly because its language is symbolic, tangled, but profoundly honest. So if you've noticed all these signs, if you feel there's something more than just a passing interest, you're not imagining things, you're picking up a silent message coming straight from the soul. And maybe that person hasn't said it to you yet, hasn't found the words, or maybe hasn't allowed themselves to admit it, but you feel it. Because something shifts when they're with you, because their energy changes, because time bends, because their silences say more than words ever could, because you don't need them to tell you. You already know. And if someone kept coming to mind while you were hearing this, it's probably for a reason. The invisible is more real than you think. And now I want you to be part of this conversation that goes beyond words. If this message touched something in you, if you saw yourself in it, or if you know someone going through this, share this video. You might be giving someone the answers they didn't know how to ask for. Leave your experience in the comments. I want to hear from you. Tell me if you've experienced any of these signs or if your intuition has revealed something the other person hasn't said yet. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to awaken. And if you want to keep exploring the secret language of the soul, the hidden truths of the unconscious, and everything Carl Jung left us as a legacy, subscribe and hit the bell icon. We're building a community of awakened souls, of people who don't settle for the superficial and want to understand what hides in gestures, in dreams, and in the signs that change lives. Because what you're feeling is not a coincidence, it's a calling. If you're in a relationship and you feel that something isn't quite right, his distant attitude doesn't match his words, this contrast creates doubt within you. A sense of inconsistency begins to arise inside. Is it just paranoia, or is it a sign that he's simply manipulating you? According to the teachings of Carl Jung, the human mind cannot keep its intentions hidden for long. The subconscious always finds a way to express itself, whether through subtle movements, recurring behaviors, or even through silence. Imagine discovering clear signs that reveal when a man is not genuinely interested in you, but only in what he can gain from the relationship. The human mind operates through symbols and universal patterns, and relationships are no exception to this rule. Since ancient times, the stories repeat themselves. The person who controls makes promises and disappears when you need him most. He manipulates you with small displays of interest, making you believe you're close to achieving your desires. But in truth, he offers nothing genuine, and the most concerning part is that he knows exactly how to keep this plan going without you even realizing it. If you've experienced this before or think you're currently caught in this cycle, it's time to be prepared. You're about to learn 8 behaviors that reveal a man is using you without truly being interested in you. Some are so subtle they're hard to notice. Others are obvious, yet you may have trained yourself to ignore them. Are you seeing the signs, or are you choosing to avoid the truth? Stay with me until the end, because the 8th behavior is the one that captivates women the most in relationships where they will never be a priority. When a man is simply using you and doesn't show genuine interest, one clear sign is the absence of real commitment. At first, he may seem fascinating and charming, saying all the right things and showing up at just the right moments to keep your attention. But soon you realize that despite his occasional presence, there's always a lingering feeling of uncertainty, as if something just doesn't quite fit. According to Jung's teachings, this behavior reflects an internal conflict between what a person shows on the outside and what remains hidden in the subconscious. He rejects the idea of loneliness, yet he doesn't seek a serious relationship either. And it's exactly this back and forth between closeness and distance that keeps you trapped in his dynamic. The lack of clarity isn't accidental, it's a powerful psychological tool. As you try to understand his feelings, you become more and more emotionally involved, caught in the desire to win him over. The human mind tends to long for what feels out of reach. According to Jung, this could be interpreted as an expression of the archetype of illusion, a recurring pattern in the human psyche that leads us to idealize what we fear we may never attain. This person never openly expresses his emotions, but he drops just enough hints to keep you hooked. When questioned about the direction of the relationship, he avoids giving a direct answer. When asked to define his position, he chooses not to make hasty decisions and prefers to let things naturally unfold. However, this spontaneity only works in his favor. In reality, he has no specific destination in mind. He's simply extending a game in which he always wins, while you remain trapped in the illusion that one day he'll finally change. This kind of behavior has a profound impact on a woman's subconscious. Jung referred to the anima and animus, the feminine and masculine elements that exist within every individual. Women who get involved with men like this often carry a subconscious belief that love must be earned, that if they're patient and behave correctly, he will eventually recognize their worth. However, this is an illusion that carries significant risks. This man is not seeking love, but rather practical benefits. Convenience doesn't require commitment, it only needs your emotional availability. He feeds on your hope, knowing that as long as you continue to believe in the possibility of something more, you will keep settling for less than you deserve. At this point, Jung would ask, why are you willing to maintain this kind of bond? What inside of you keeps this pattern alive? The solution doesn't lie in him, but in something deeper within yourself. According to Jung, the shadow houses all our hidden suffering, fears, and beliefs that shape our decisions. Maybe you've developed a habit of confusing occasional attention with genuine affection. Maybe you're afraid of being alone, and that's why you accept any form of companionship, no matter how superficial or inconsistent it may be. But the truth is clear. Until you confront that hidden part within you, you will continue to attract men who use you and never truly commit. Independence often disguises itself as coldness and distance in the second behavioral pattern. At first, this man might appear confident, self-sufficient, and uninterested in conflict. But over time, it becomes clear that his independence is actually a wall that blocks genuine connection. According to Carl Jung, each person projects inner aspects of their psyche onto others. This particular man presents a facade of strength and detachment to hide his deep fear of real emotional commitment. He avoids intense emotional conversations, steers clear of honest dialogue, and when you try to get closer, he responds vaguely or deflects the topic. This emotional barrier isn't accidental. It serves the purpose of keeping you close without having to give anything in return. Once you begin to show your feelings, the psychological game becomes more evident. Showing affection makes him withdraw. When you bring up something that hurt you, he may accuse you of being too dramatic. Jung described a fundamental divide between what we present outwardly and what we hide inwardly. These individuals hold a deep internal contradiction. They seek female companionship without the weight of intimacy. They want someone to fulfill their temporary needs without any emotional strings attached. And what's most difficult is that the more you try to overcome the emotional wall and create something authentic, the more out of place you feel for wanting something deeper. This dynamic triggers a dangerous subconscious process. According to Jung, a woman's unconscious often seeks to heal emotional wounds through relationships. That's why some women are drawn to men who cannot reciprocate their feelings. There's a hidden belief that if they're persistent enough and prove their worth, he will eventually open up and see their uniqueness. But that transformation never comes. You were never the problem. This man doesn't have emotional wounds that can be healed by the love you offer. He has made a conscious choice to maintain that emotional distance because it serves him. Jung would ask, why does this emotional absence affect you so deeply? What causes you to accept a relationship where you're constantly chasing something that will never be within reach? You won't find the answer in him, but in the deepest layers of your personal emotional history. Perhaps it's fear of rejection. Or perhaps it's a subconscious belief that real love must be difficult in order to feel meaningful. However, the truth is that a man who truly cares about you does not leave you uncertain about his feelings. He doesn't build emotional walls that distance you from others. If you're experiencing such feelings, it might be time to stop trying to overcome that barrier and instead reflect on what drives you to keep pushing forward. The third behavior involves subtle manipulation disguised as charm. He never sets restrictions, never raises his voice, and rarely engages in direct confrontation. On the surface, he appears calm, self-assured, and even a bit indifferent, but gradually you begin to sense that something is not quite right. According to Carl Jung, the unconscious human communicates through symbols and structures, using nonverbal cues, strategic omissions, and even silence to exert influence undetected. You constantly feel left behind, always trying to decipher his desires and striving to capture his attention. But the truth is, this mental game is calculated. He knows exactly how to make you feel insecure, without saying a word. The pattern repeats itself subtly. When you're joyful and full of energy, he grows distant. When you start to pull away, he returns with affection and vague promises. When you express discomfort, he downplays it, deflects the conversation, or makes you feel like you're overreacting. According to Jung, the human psyche contains many contradictions, and this type of person operates skillfully within that ambiguity. He offers just enough hope, but never the full sense of security you seek. In this way, your mind remains on constant alert, searching for signs, trying to understand his motives, creating an emotional connection that only strengthens the influence he has over you. The cruelest part of this dynamic is that the deeper your emotional investment, the harder it becomes to recognize the manipulation. Jung referred to the shadow as the hidden part of the personality that holds everything we reject about ourselves. Often, women in relationships with men like this carry a subconscious belief that they must earn love, prove their worth, and wait patiently to be truly appreciated. However, this man never meets your expectations because subtle manipulation isn't about reaching a goal, it's about maintaining control over you. The question Jung would invite us to reflect on is, why are you attracted to someone who constantly makes you feel insecure? What inside you has learned to associate emotional instability with passionate feelings? The subconscious can be deceptive. Sometimes we seek in others what we need to heal within ourselves. True love does not create anxiety, it doesn't make you question your self-worth, and it doesn't trap you in a state of constant uncertainty. If this person gives you just enough to keep you trying, it might be time to pause and ask yourself why you keep participating. The fourth behavior is marked by emotional unavailability, hidden beneath a facade of indifference. At first, he may seem calm, low maintenance, and content with any situation. But as the relationship progresses, you begin to notice a strange imbalance. While you give your energy, care, and effort to keep the connection alive, he simply receives, offering little to nothing in return. According to the teachings of Carl Jung, relationships are a reflection of our unconscious. If a man doesn't reciprocate your effort, it means you were never a priority for him, even though he will never admit it directly. Instead, he pretends everything is fine, taking advantage of your feelings without offering anything in return. The pattern becomes increasingly clear. When you're ready and available, he pulls away. When you grow tired and begin to distance yourself, he notices and wins you back with small gestures, just enough to reignite your hope. According to Jung, the human mind operates through repeating patterns, and this strategy of distancing and approaching is not accidental. He stays in this cycle because he knows that uncertainty creates emotional bonds. You find yourself constantly trying to maintain balance in the relationship, trying to understand his desires, and hoping for the moment when he will finally start to reciprocate. But that moment never comes, because he isn't invested in building something real. He's simply taking advantage of everything you give without making a true commitment. The lack of reciprocity might be mistaken as a personality trait. You might say he doesn't tolerate pressure or express his emotions differently. Jung warns us that in an unbalanced relationship, there's often a hidden truth we'd rather not face. If you're always the one making the effort, solving the problems, and sacrificing yourself to avoid confrontation, then you are not in a balanced partnership. The longer you remain in this dynamic, the more you get used to receiving less than you deserve, convincing yourself it's normal. The key question Jung would ask in this situation is, why do you keep devoting yourself to someone who never gives back in the same way? What part of you believes it's necessary to keep trying with someone who clearly isn't willing to give more than the bare minimum? The subconscious can trap us in negative patterns, but it can also be our key to freedom if we dare to confront it. You must seek a partner who acknowledges and reciprocates your efforts, where there is harmony and mutual respect in the relationship. If this person only takes without giving, then perhaps what needs to change is not him, but your decision to keep tolerating it. The fifth behavior involves subtle belittlement disguised as humor. At first, his light-hearted attitude may seem clever, fun, even charming, but over time you begin to realize that his comments about you aren't as harmless as they appear. He might mock your style, downplay your achievements, tell you that you could be doing more, or even compare you to other women casually. According to Jung's teachings, the human mind operates on multiple levels, and this behavior reveals more about the person who displays it than about you. Through seemingly innocent remarks, he expresses his own insecurities and desire for control, chipping away at your self-confidence and making you question your worth. The strategy is deceptive because it doesn't come across as a direct criticism. If you feel hurt by one of his jokes and try to express it with something like, "Wow, you're very observant," he shifts the focus and makes it seem as if you're the one overreacting. According to Jung, unconscious human behavior follows specific patterns, and this kind of emotional influence occurs when someone seeks to gain power without appearing aggressive. His aim is to generate insecurity in you, because an insecure woman is easier to manipulate. Without even noticing, you may start changing your behavior, your way of dressing, or even your thoughts to better align with what he deems acceptable or worthy of approval. The biggest threat lies in the fact that this form of belittling isn't always obvious. Sometimes you receive compliments with a hint of irony or hear subtle remarks that make you feel uneasy. According to Jung's teachings, how we are treated by others reveals much about what we've learned to tolerate within ourselves. If you find yourself justifying his behavior, thinking he's just joking or didn't really mean it, you may be overlooking a toxic cycle that has embedded itself in the relationship dynamic. Someone who truly values you would never resort to comments that diminish you, not even under the guise of humor or honesty. The question Jung would pose is, why are you willing to tolerate this kind of behavior? What inside of you leads you to overlook these remarks, even when you know they hurt? Often, from a young age, we are taught that love and criticism go hand in hand, that being loved means tolerating discomfort and adjusting ourselves to be accepted. But this belief must be unlearned. Real love strengthens you. It doesn't take your strength away. If a man makes you feel inferior, if he uses his words to diminish you instead of uplift you, then perhaps it's time to reflect on the fact that the problem does not lie within you, but in the way he chooses to treat you. The sixth behavior involves maintaining a calculated emotional distance. He doesn't give you his full attention, but he also doesn't seem entirely absent. There's an invisible barrier that keeps you apart and prevents you from truly connecting with him. According to Carl Jung's teachings, the human mind develops masks as a defense mechanism, leading some people to hide behind emotional walls in order to avoid deep connections. At first, he may come across as reserved or as someone who just needs time to open up. But as the days, weeks, or even months go by, you realize that this distance isn't temporary. It's a conscious decision. He always keeps part of himself hidden, and the more you try to get close, the more he pulls away. When you notice that he rarely shares personal or emotional things, you begin to see the psychological dynamic at play. You may know about his habits, preferences, or even his daily routine, but his fears, painful experiences, and deeper emotions remain out of reach. When you ask about his feelings, he gives vague answers, avoiding any real vulnerability. When you try to build a special connection, he might change the subject or make you feel like you're asking too much. Jung explained that some individuals avoid deep relationships because they fear what they might uncover within themselves. However, in this man's case, the emotional barrier isn't just a defense mechanism, it becomes a tactic. By maintaining that emotional distance, he actually motivates you to try harder to win him over, keeping you emotionally hooked in a nearly hypnotic way. The alternation between closeness and distance has a significant impact on your subconscious. According to Jung, the human mind tends to fill the voids of the psyche, creating an intense longing to understand and win over those who appear distant and inaccessible. You try a little harder, show more patience and understanding, hoping that you might eventually break through the barrier. However, the truth is that this limitation is not there by accident. It is what keeps the game functioning. He always maintains a certain level of emotional reserve because he knows that without it, he would lose control over the dynamic of the relationship. The question Jung would invite us to reflect upon is, what drives you to chase someone who clearly doesn't want to be chased? What feeling inside you makes you believe this struggle is worth it? Sometimes we hold on to the subconscious belief that love must be difficult, that the harder we work for someone, the greater the reward. But that belief is misleading. Real love is not a maze where you must prove your worth at every turn. If you truly mattered to him, he wouldn't be keeping you at arm's length. Perhaps the real question isn't whether you should keep trying, but why you feel the need to try in the first place. The seventh behavior is emotional instability, a recurring pattern of broken promises and sudden changes. One moment he's affectionate and thoughtful, and the next he becomes distant and indifferent. One day he's talking about the future with enthusiasm, filling you with hope, and the next he acts as though none of it ever happened. According to Jung, the human being constantly struggles between the image we project outward and our true inner emotions. This man masters that duality, weaving closeness and distance together in order to keep you emotionally hooked. He doesn't want to let you go, but he also won't commit to a real relationship. This traps you in a cycle of emotional highs and lows, never knowing which version of him will show up. The inconsistency isn't a coincidence. According to Jung, people tend to see in others the parts of themselves they cannot face. In this psychological game, he demonstrates a desire for control disguised as spontaneity. Although he claims he doesn't like labels, prefers to live in the moment, and avoids drama, he is, in fact, orchestrating everything carefully. He creates an atmosphere of uncertainty that compels you to prove your worth. You try harder to get his attention, while he increasingly oscillates between tenderness and indifference. You cling to the hope that if you do everything right, you'll bring back the version of him that seemed in love. But the effect this has on your subconscious is deeply harmful. Jung discussed how recurring emotional patterns shape our relationships, creating a subconscious need to be validated. Because of this lack of consistency, you start blaming yourself, thinking maybe you weren't charming enough or that you said the wrong thing. But the truth is, the fault is not yours. It is part of his calculated manipulation. He never intended to offer you emotional stability. He thrives on the control he has over your emotions, on how he can shift your mood with a single gesture or expression. The question Jung would raise here is, what attracts you to someone who keeps you in a constant state of uncertainty? What inside you makes insecurity seem more appealing than stability? Sometimes the subconscious links emotional instability with passion, as if challenges increase the value of love. But this mistake carries serious consequences. Real love is not about solving riddles or decoding mysteries. If he truly cared, you wouldn't feel the constant need to prove yourself. And perhaps the greatest truth you need to accept is this: his inconsistency is not due to immaturity or fear of commitment. It is a choice. And now it's your turn to choose, to stop tolerating it. Selfishness disguises itself as freedom in the eighth behavior. He always puts his own desires above yours, though he does it so subtly that for a while you may think it's normal. If he wants to hang out with his friends, he does. If he needs space, he withdraws. Whenever you ask for something, he finds a reason to justify himself. He talks about autonomy, about how relationships shouldn't impose limits. But in reality, that freedom only benefits him. In contrast, you constantly find yourself in a delicate position, trying not to appear rigid, striving to be empathetic. while he continues his routine as if your presence were merely a convenient circumstance. According to Carl Jung's teachings, the ego is skilled at crafting stories that justify our actions. This man uses the notion of freedom as an excuse to avoid taking responsibility for offering anything beyond what is convenient to him. However, the freedom he defends follows a peculiar pattern. When you seek time for yourself, it bothers him. When you begin to distance yourself, he senses it and suddenly reappears, almost as if by instinct, not with real commitment but with small actions that reignite your hope for the future. He expresses that he's missed you, says he hasn't stopped thinking about you, and claims he wants to see you. But as soon as he feels you're emotionally invested again, he returns to his selfish and distant behavior. According to Jung, some individuals do not experience genuine love. Instead, they seek validation of their own existence through others. Although this man values your presence, he is not willing to give up his complete freedom. And so you become trapped in a cycle where you are always the one who must adapt, who must give in while he does nothing to keep the relationship balanced. The greatest danger of this kind of behavior is that it makes you feel like you are the one responsible for every difficulty in the relationship. If you question something, he labels you as controlling. If you express pain, you're told you're exaggerating. If you set boundaries, you're seen as unreasonable. According to Jung's teachings, we carry unconscious patterns within us that repeat throughout our lives. Sometimes, women who tolerate this type of behavior were raised to believe that asking for love and commitment is excessive. But that belief must be changed, because real love should not feel like a burden. You are not obligated to always be the one making the effort, while the other person never moves toward you. In this situation, Jung would ask, why do you continue to settle for less than what you truly deserve? What within you values freedom more than your own emotional needs? Healthy relationships are not built on strategies, calculated distance, or hollow commitments. Authentic love is marked by the harmony that arises when two people decide to share their lives. If you feel like you're the only one constantly making an effort, the harsh truth may be that he was never truly present. Now it's time for you to decide. A man who is merely using you will never be honest with you. He doesn't need to be. His actions are the reflection of who he really is, and if you pay close attention, you'll notice the same pattern repeating: lack of commitment, emotional distance, subtle manipulation, and selfishness disguised as freedom. According to Carl Jung, the human mind tends to project onto others the aspects we prefer not to acknowledge within ourselves. If you find yourself in such a situation, it might be time to reflect. What part of me still believes I deserve something less than what real love looks like? When you identify these patterns, you gain the power to change them, which is excellent news. Love shouldn't be a struggle where you must prove your worth, nor a game in which the other person always holds the power. As Jung said, discovering oneself leads to freedom, and true change begins when you choose to no longer settle for less than you deserve. The right man does not leave you uncertain, does not make you question your value, and does not trap you in a cycle of constantly seeking validation. He is simply there, present. If what you heard was helpful and gave you the insight you were looking for, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Doing so helps more people gain access to this knowledge and break free from these harmful relationship patterns. If you've gone through something similar, let us know in the comments and feel free to share this video with anyone who needs to hear it. Until the next recording. They always made you believe that youth is the key to sexual attractiveness. They lied to you. Carl Jung discovered in his most secret manuscripts that there exists an ancestral erotic energy accessible only to mature women, an energy that renders any evolutionarily advanced man completely incapable of resisting. This energy is activated through 8 sacred vices that patriarchal society has labeled as dirty, precisely because they represent feminine power in its purest form. Today, I will reveal to you these 8 forbidden vices that no young woman can master, and how to use them to awaken a magnetic attraction that transcends the physical body and speaks directly to the male soul. The combination of the fourth and seventh vices is so powerful that even Jung considered it dangerously irresistible, a secret known to ancient tantric priestesses that has been deliberately erased from history. The modern world made you believe a devastating lie, that a woman's erotic power diminishes with age. This is perhaps the greatest falsehood ever perpetrated against the sacred feminine. Jung, in his studies, discovered the exact opposite. He observed that in ancient cultures, before the rise of patriarchal civilization, mature women were regarded as the keepers of the secrets of eros and sacred sexuality. They were the ones who initiated young women and men into the mysteries of tantric union. They were the priestesses of the temples of love. And that's because they possessed something no young woman, no matter how beautiful, could ever have: full integration of her shadow. The shadow, as Jung called it, is that part of us that contains everything society has taught us to repress, to hide, to see as inappropriate or even shameful. It holds our deepest desires, our primal urges, our wild instincts. For centuries, women have been conditioned to suppress these parts of themselves, to always appear composed, measured, appropriate. But Jung discovered that the true erotic magnetism of a mature woman arises precisely from her ability to embrace these shadow parts, to integrate them into her conscious personality, to transform these so-called vices into sources of sacred power. And this is the first great secret you must understand. What society has labeled as vices are, in truth, sacred virtues, deep spiritual abilities that, once awakened, allow you to radiate an energy so magnetic that no evolved man can ignore it. This is not about superficial techniques or seduction tricks. It's about a profound energetic awakening, a return to your most authentic and wild nature. What Clarissa Pinkola Estes called the wild woman, the feminine archetype in its most powerful and untamed expression. Throughout this journey of rediscovery, I will guide you through the 8 sacred vices that Jung identified as the keys to mature, feminine, erotic magnetism. I will show you how to recognize them within yourself, how to awaken them from their forced slumber, and how to integrate them into your life so you can naturally radiate that irresistible energy that is your birthright as a woman who has walked the initiatory path of life. But I want to be completely honest with you. This path is not for everyone. It requires courage. It demands the will to go beyond conditioning, to challenge everything you've been taught about being a proper woman. It requires the willingness to confront aspects of yourself that you may have hidden, even from yourself. It is a journey of initiation, a path of deep transformation. But if you are ready to take it, the rewards are beyond anything you could imagine. Before I reveal the first of the sacred vices, I want to share with you a revolutionary discovery Jung made while studying erotic energy through the different stages of a woman's life. He noticed that while a young woman's sexual energy is mostly projected outward, focused on appearing desirable to others, a mature woman's erotic energy is rooted in her deep, energetic center, what in Eastern traditions is known as the lower dantian, the center of creative power. That's why the sexuality of a mature woman has a completely different quality. It is not performative, it is not oriented toward pleasing or conforming to external models. It is an authentic expression of her inner fire, of her deepest life force. And here is the first of the sacred vices that will make you irresistible. The vice of bold vulnerability. Bold vulnerability is the ability to show desire without filters, without power games, without the strategies younger women use to attract attention. It is the willingness to drop all masks, all social personas, and present yourself to a man in your naked truth. Not just physically, but energetically and spiritually. It is the ability to say with your whole being, "This is what I desire, this is what I enjoy, this is my hunger," without apologies, without justifications, without shame. This bold vulnerability is considered a vice by patriarchal society because it represents a woman who fully owns her sexuality, who does not hide or water it down to seem more acceptable. A woman who knows what she wants and is not afraid to ask for it is seen as a threat to the established order, where female desire is expected to be moderated, always reactive to male desire. never primary or initiating. But the truth Jung discovered is that this bold vulnerability is deeply magnetic to evolutionarily advanced men. While it may scare emotionally immature men, it irresistibly attracts those who are ready for authentic intimacy, for a connection that goes beyond games and pretenses. These men unconsciously recognize in this vulnerability not a weakness, but an extraordinary strength, a courage that speaks directly to their soul. Sonia, a 54-year-old woman who took part in my courses, told me how awakening this vice completely transformed her intimate life. After years of always holding back, always measuring her expression of desire, she decided to fully embrace her bold vulnerability. The first time she looked her partner in the eyes and expressed without filters exactly what she wanted, she saw something shift in his gaze. It wasn't just arousal, it was deep recognition, as if he was truly seeing her for the first time. That night, they experienced a level of intimacy they had never reached in years of their relationship, and since then, their bond has deepened in ways she never thought possible. That's because bold vulnerability is not just an outward behavior, it is an energetic opening. When you allow yourself to be completely authentic in your desire, you activate what the ancient Taoists called the jade path, the energy channel that connects your sexual center with your heart and your third eye. It's as if your entire life energy can finally flow without blockages, without restrictions, creating an energetic field around you that is perceptible to anyone sensitive enough to feel it. If what I'm telling you resonates with something deep inside you, if you feel that this might be the missing piece in the puzzle of your erotic expression, then I invite you to do something simple yet powerful. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. In the upcoming videos, I will delve even deeper into these sacred vices, show you specific exercises to awaken them, and share ancient tantric practices to fully integrate them into your being. I don't want you to miss these teachings, which can literally transform not just your intimate life, but your relationship with your own life force. Do it now. It's a small step that can open the door to an entirely new understanding of your feminine power. The second sacred vice that will make your sexual energy irresistible is what Jung called the vice of sacred selfishness. This is perhaps the most powerful transgression against traditional female conditioning, which is why it has been so demonized by patriarchal culture. Sacred selfishness is the ability to prioritize your pleasure, to place your needs, your desires, your rhythm at the center of the dance of intimacy. It is the willingness to lead, to teach, to show the man how to fully satisfy you. It is a complete reversal of the traditional narrative where a woman is expected to be receptive, passive, focused on the pleasure of the other before her own. The ancient tantric priestesses knew that female pleasure is not a side effect of male pleasure, but an energetic force in itself, a powerful creative energy that, when fully expressed, has the power to transform both partners. In classical Tantra, the female orgasm was considered a gateway to the divine, a moment of direct connection with the creative energies of the universe. And that is why women, initiated into the sacred mysteries, were trained to fully own their pleasure, to never sacrifice it, to regard it as sacred as life itself. Jung rediscovered this ancient wisdom in his studies of female erotic energy. He observed that women who had integrated this sacred selfishness radiated a completely different energy, a powerful magnetism that attracted men on a level far beyond physical attraction. Because an evolutionarily advanced man recognizes, even unconsciously, the transformative power of a woman who fully owns her pleasure. To truly understand why this vice is so powerful, you must grasp something fundamental about the deep male psyche. Contrary to what modern culture has led you to believe, a mature man does not desire a woman who sacrifices herself for him, who sets aside her desires to please him. That is an immature dynamic, rooted in insecurity and power games. A truly evolved man desires a woman who challenges him, who pushes him to grow, who leads him to depths of intimacy he didn't even know existed. And a woman who practices sacred selfishness does exactly that. She challenges the man to surpass himself, to become a better lover, more attentive, more connected. Louisa, a radiant 57-year-old woman who took part in my Inner Path courses, told me how integrating this vice completely revolutionized her intimate life. After decades of marriage, she had long silenced her needs, faked satisfaction, and accepted intimacy that left her unfulfilled. When she finally found the courage to embrace sacred selfishness, to clearly express what gave her pleasure, to guide her husband through that journey of discovery, he didn't feel threatened or inadequate as she had feared. On the contrary, he responded with enthusiasm, with gratitude, with a renewed desire to connect with her on a deeper level. It was as if he gave her permission to finally be authentic, and this liberated him too from limiting patterns and expectations. Sacred selfishness has such a profoundly transformative power because it's not just about physical pleasure, but about the entire energetic field created between you and your partner. When you practice this sacred vice, you activate what in tantric tradition is called the Kundalini circuit, the flow of energy that rises from your sexual center through all the chakras up to the crown. This energy, when flowing freely, creates a vibrational field around you that can be perceived even from a distance. It's as if you emit an energetic fragrance that naturally attracts men capable of responding to this elevated frequency. You can awaken this vice within yourself. There is a simple yet powerful practice you can do alone. Sit in a quiet place, close your eyes, and bring your attention to your pelvic center. Visualize a sphere of golden light there, warm, pulsating. This is the seat of your sacred pleasure energy. As you breathe deeply, imagine this light expanding, first filling your pelvis, then rising along the spine, illuminating each chakra along the way. Feel how this energy is entirely yours, how it is your birthright to fully possess it. Repeat to yourself, my pleasure is sacred, my desire is divine, my satisfaction is a gift to the universe. Do this practice for 7 consecutive days and you will notice a subtle yet profound shift in the way you relate to your erotic energy. The third sacred vice that will make you magnetically irresistible is what Jung called the vice of proud imperfection. This may be the most revolutionary of the vices, the one that most directly challenges the dominant cultural narrative about beauty and female attractiveness. Proud imperfection is the ability to fully embrace your mature body, with all its marks, its curves, its transformations. It is the willingness to celebrate every wrinkle as a sign of wisdom, every scar as a story of resilience, every change as an initiatory passage that has made you the powerful woman you are today. It is the total refusal to conform to youth-centered beauty standards and the bold affirmation that true feminine beauty lies precisely in what the dominant culture wants you to hide. Jung discovered, through studying traditional societies around the world, that in cultures untouched by modern patriarchal values, the mature female body was celebrated, honored, even revered. Soft curves, breasts that have nourished life, the belly that has hosted new souls, all of these were seen as signs of fully blossomed sacredness, not as imperfections to correct or conceal. And men in those cultures responded to these physical manifestations of feminine maturity with desire and reverence. That's because, at a deep unconscious level, evolutionarily advanced men are not programmed to respond to the artificial perfection promoted by the media, but to the embodied authenticity of a woman who fully owns her body in all its stages. Contrary to what culture has led you to believe, a mature man is not primarily attracted to youth or flawlessness, but to presence, confidence, and the energy a woman radiates when she is completely at ease in her own skin. Elena, a radiant 62-year-old woman, shared with me how embracing the vice of proud imperfection completely transformed her intimate life. For years, she made love with the lights off, hid certain parts of her body, and limited her movements out of fear of revealing signs of aging or so-called flaws. When she finally found the courage to release these fears, to fully show herself, to move freely, guided only by her pleasure, she noticed an immediate shift in her partner's response. Her free expression, her lack of self-consciousness, her joy in her own body, awakened in him a deeper, more animalistic, more totalizing desire than he had ever felt in their years together. That's because, when you embrace proud imperfection, it literally changes the chemistry between you and your partner. The ancient Taoist traditions spoke of the importance of alchemy between yin and yang energies during sexual union. When a woman is fully present in her body, without shame, without hesitation, her yin energy expands, creating a magnetic field that naturally attracts the masculine yang energy. It's an energetic dance that bypasses the conscious mind and speaks directly to the man's energetic body. You can integrate this sacred vice into your life. I suggest a powerful practice, the sacred mirror ritual. Find a moment when you can be completely alone and undisturbed. Position a mirror large enough to reflect your entire body and stand before it. Breathe deeply, and as you look at your reflection, begin to touch every part of your body with reverence and gratitude. Thank your hands for all they have created and caressed. Honor your legs for carrying you through your journeys. Celebrate your belly for its deep, intuitive wisdom. Bless your breasts for their ability to give and receive pleasure. As you do this, speak aloud. I am beautiful. I am powerful. I am sacred in every curve, in every line, in every transformation. If what I'm revealing is touching something deep within you, if you feel these sacred vices are awakening your full power, I want to invite you to take a bolder step. In my course, the Carl Jung Code of Relationships, I guide you on a deep journey with specific exercises to fully integrate these sacred vices into your being. I reveal the most powerful combinations, those ancient priestesses reserved only for initiates, and show you how to use them to create such a strong magnetic field that you naturally attract the most profound and fulfilling experiences of intimacy into your life. The link to learn more is in the description of this video, or you can simply write Eros in the comments and I will personally send you all the information. Alternatively, a card is now appearing in the top right corner. Clicking on it will take you directly to the course. Now we arrive at the fourth sacred vice, the one Jung considered the most powerful and transformative of all, the one that ancient tantric traditions taught only after years of preparation. I'm talking about the vice of total presence. The almost magical ability to stop time in intimacy, to enter an altered state of consciousness where only the present moment exists, where every sensation is amplified, every touch is a universe in itself, every breath a cosmic dance. Total presence is the ability to completely abandon mental control during intimacy, to let go of every thought, every worry, every self-image, and to immerse yourself fully in the river of sensations. It's a trance-like state that creates such a powerful, energetic field that it becomes almost tangible, a field that envelops both partners and transports them into dimensions of pleasure and connection that transcend ordinary experience. This ability is considered a vice in modern society because it represents a complete abandonment of rationality, control, and constant self-monitoring that our culture imposes on us. A woman who enters this trance state is seen as dangerous, primal, too powerful, too free. And it's true. In this state, a woman accesses energies and powers that make her impossible to control or manipulate. She becomes a force of nature, a living portal to dimensions of human experience that rational society prefers to deny or suppress. But it is precisely this state of total presence that makes a mature woman irresistible at a level that goes far beyond physical attraction. Jung discovered that evolutionarily advanced men respond to this feminine trance state with an almost magnetic attraction, a primal call that bypasses the rational mind entirely and speaks directly to the most ancient parts of the brain, those connected to instinct and deep intuition. Clara, a 59-year-old woman with a natural inclination for spirituality, told me how discovering this sacred vice completely revolutionized her intimate life. For years, she had always maintained a certain level of control during intimacy. A part of her mind remained alert, observant, never fully surrendered to the experience. When she began practicing the tantric techniques of conscious surrender that I taught her, she experienced for the first time what it truly meant to be fully present, fully immersed in the moment. The first time she entered this trance state with her partner, she noticed something extraordinary. He responded with an intensity, a passion, a presence that he had never shown before. It was as if her complete presence had awakened something primal in him, something wild and authentic that had been dormant under layers of social conditioning. That's because when a woman enters the state of total presence, she activates what in tantric tradition is called Shakti, the feminine creative energy in its purest and most powerful form. This energy has the power to awaken its counterpart, Shiva, the conscious masculine energy, creating an energetic circuit that amplifies the experience for both partners. It is a cosmic dance that goes beyond physical bodies, a fusion of energies that can lead to expanded states of consciousness and bliss, described in ancient texts as sexual samadhi, the divine ecstasy of union. You can develop this capacity for total presence. I want to share with you a simple yet powerful practice, the orgasmic breath meditation. Find a quiet space where you won't be disturbed. Sit or lie down in a comfortable position and bring your attention to your breath. Begin breathing deeply, letting each inhale fill your belly first, then your chest. As you exhale, release completely, allowing the breath to leave with a soft sound. Gradually start to imagine that each breath enters through your sexual center and travels up your spine to the crown of your head. With every exhale, feel the energy flow back down, creating a continuous circuit. As you continue this circular breathing, allow your body to respond freely. You may notice spontaneous undulations in your spine, sensations of warmth or vibration, even waves of pleasure spreading from your pelvic center. Embrace all these sensations without trying to control or direct them. This is the key to total presence, the ability to completely surrender to the flow of vital energy in your body. Now, the fifth sacred vice that will make your sexual energy irresistible is what Jung called the vice of forbidden imagination. This is an aspect of female sexuality that has been particularly demonized and repressed by patriarchal culture, and for good reason. It is incredibly powerful. Forbidden imagination is the ability to access and give voice to your deepest desires, your most intimate fantasies, your boldest erotic visions. It is the willingness to explore the wild territories of your erotic psyche, those borderlands where desires sleep, perhaps never shared with anyone, not even with yourself. It is the art of using imagination as a portal to dimensions of pleasure that go beyond the purely physical. In ancient tantric traditions, female erotic imagination was considered a magical force, a powerful manifesting ability that could literally call forth experiences and partners that resonated with a woman's deepest desires. Priestesses were trained to cultivate and refine this imagination, to make it increasingly vivid and detailed, and to use it as a tool for conscious manifestation. Jung had rediscovered the importance of this active imagination in his studies of the feminine unconscious. He observed that women who had integrated this vice into their lives radiated a completely different energy, an aura of mystery and infinite possibility that naturally drew men in on a level far beyond surface attraction. Because an evolutionarily advanced man can sense, though not always consciously, the transformative power of feminine erotic imagination. He feels that this woman could lead him into realms of experience he has never explored, that she might reveal to him parts of himself he doesn't even know yet. Maria, a 56-year-old woman with a rich inner world, told me how embracing this vice brought an entirely new dimension to her intimate life. For years, she had kept her deepest fantasies hidden. She had considered them inappropriate, even shameful. When she finally found the courage to share them with her partner, not only was she not judged as she had feared, she discovered that her openness created a space of freedom for him as well, allowing him to access desires and fantasies he had never dared to express. This sharing created a level of intimacy and complicity that completely transformed their relationship, taking it to depths they had never imagined. That's because Forbidden imagination is not just a mental game, it is a powerful tool of energetic manifestation. When you give voice to your deepest desires, you activate what tantric tradition calls the power of Vakshakti, the creative energy of the word. Words, especially when spoken in a heightened state of awareness, have the power to shift the energetic field, to create vibrational waves that attract resonant experiences. This is why sharing your fantasies with a partner is not merely an act of intimacy, but a ritual of co-creation. You can awaken this vice within you. I suggest a powerful practice. The Hidden Desires Journal. Get yourself a special notebook to be used only for this purpose. Every night before bed, devote 10 minutes to writing freely, without censorship, any fantasies or desires that emerge from your erotic psyche. Do not judge what comes up, and don't try to control or direct the flow. Let your imagination wander freely, exploring territories you may have never dared to visit consciously. After writing, close the journal and place it somewhere safe. This practice is not only about clarifying your true desires to yourself, it also acts as a powerful act of manifestation, sending a clear signal to the universe about what you want to attract into your life. The sixth sacred vice that will make you magnetically irresistible is what Jung called the vice of spiritual power, the ability to transform sexual energy into spiritual power, and vice versa. This is perhaps the most esoteric and mystical aspect of mature feminine eroticism, and it has been the most actively suppressed and demonized by patriarchal religions. Spiritual power is the ability to consciously recognize and harness the deep connection between sexuality and spirituality. It is the lived understanding that sexual energy and spiritual energy are not separate, but actually the same life force flowing through different channels. It is the art of directing this energy fluidly between those channels, using pleasure as a portal into elevated states of consciousness, and inversely using spiritual connection to amplify erotic experience. You can integrate this sacred vice into your life. I suggest a simple yet powerful practice, the light sphere meditation. Find a time when you won't be disturbed. Sit or lie down in a comfortable position and close your eyes. Begin to breathe deeply, feeling each breath entering and leaving your body. After a few minutes, bring your attention to your pelvic center and imagine a pulsing golden sphere of light there. With each inhale, feel this light growing brighter, more intense. With each exhale, feel the light expanding, first filling your pelvis, then rising up your spine. Visualize this light activating and illuminating each chakra along the way: the sacral chakra, the solar plexus, the heart chakra, the throat, the third eye, and finally the crown. When the light reaches the crown, imagine it opening like a flower, connecting you with the spiritual dimensions above. Then with your next exhale, visualize the light flowing back down, now enriched with spiritual energy, returning to the pelvic center. Continue this energetic circuit for at least 10 minutes, feeling how sexual and spiritual energy merge and enhance one another in this circular flow. The seventh sacred vice that will make your energy irresistible is what Jung called the vice of conscious transgression. This is perhaps the boldest and most liberating vice, the one that most directly challenges the boundaries and limitations society has imposed on your sexual expression. The vice of conscious transgression is your willingness to deliberately break the rules that no longer serve you. It is a bold act of inner freedom, the ability to stop asking for permission to be who you truly are: sensual, powerful, untamable. For decades, even centuries, society has imposed on women what is considered appropriate, moral, respectable. But at the very core of your feminine sexuality lies a wild intelligence that knows truth and freedom always come through the courage to step outside the lines. This transgression is not an egoic rebellion, but a deeply conscious action, one connected to your heart, body, and soul. When you dare to be authentic, even if it means shattering the norms that have been ingrained in you, you become a radiant being who no longer seeks approval, but inspires. Your sexual energy then is no longer subject to others' projections. It becomes a tool of your truth and your creation. The men who are ready will feel that force and be drawn not to your body, but to your wholeness, to the woman who knows, who chooses, and who dares. Have you ever wondered why some women, without saying a single word, can capture all of a man's attention? It's not their looks, not what they say, and it's not something they can force. It's something much more subtle, something that lingers in the air and is perceived by him without knowing why. From Carl Jung's deep perspective, what we don't make conscious in ourselves inevitably shows up in our relationships. We do not love in a logical or controlled way. It is our unconscious world, our deepest psychic energy, that creates genuine connections, and often it's the quietest postures, the ones we don't rationalize or plan, that leave the strongest impression. True attraction doesn't arise from pretty words or obvious gestures. It comes from an invisible vibration that we emit, tiny movements, postures, moments of silence that directly touch the unconscious of the other. Because what truly connects us is not what we consciously present, but what we unconsciously radiate. It is that inexplicable feeling of being drawn to someone without a word. Today we're diving into exactly that. 8 silent attitudes that often go unnoticed, yet can unfold a powerful force of attraction. Attitudes that don't need words to be felt, that you don't learn through techniques, but through reconnecting with your own authentic energy. Are you ready to view your own silence from a new perspective? Then take a deep breath. Because from now on, you'll begin to understand that real magnetism isn't loud. It is felt, lived, and radiated from the unconscious. True attraction doesn't always come from words or obvious actions. In Jungian depth psychology, we understand that much of what we project onto others stems from unconscious patterns, from internal energies that are perceived far beyond what is visible. One of these powerful energies is the ability to simply be present without taking up space. The silent presence. A woman who simply is, without effort, without inner restlessness, without the need to be noticed, emits a vibration that touches. She doesn't need to fill the space with words or embellish it with forced gestures. Her quiet existence alone communicates, "I am here. I am enough." Carl Jung emphasized that the unconscious in others perceives not only what it wants, but also what it fears. Silent presence activates deep internal memories, archetypal images of stability, safety, and trust. When someone is truly present, they do not need to loudly declare their existence. Their inner state alone transforms the atmosphere. The collective unconscious perceives it, even if the conscious mind cannot explain it. This presence doesn't come from control, but from inner reconciliation, from fully inhabiting oneself with acceptance of both light and shadow. In a world overwhelmed by stimulation and noise, silent presence becomes an oasis for those tired of superficiality, a quiet reminder that there are still spaces where the soul can rest. Reflection for you. Do you allow yourself to inhabit the moment in stillness, or do you feel the need to do something to be worthy of being seen? And although authentic presence quietly transforms the environment, there are small gestures, almost imperceptible, that can create even deeper connection without any words. In the invisible realm of human relationships, small gestures speak a language that the conscious mind can hardly translate. According to Carl Jung, much of our communication happens through symbols, images, subtle actions, micro-expressions, things that trigger emotional reactions without passing through the rational filter. A genuine smile, not staged, not performed to please, is one of those silent symbols. A smile that holds secrets, that doesn't give everything away, that hints at a rich, mysterious inner world waiting to be discovered. When a woman smiles this way, not to charm, not to draw attention, but as an authentic expression of her inner world, her energy becomes irresistibly fascinating. It's not about playing with the other. It's about allowing quiet joy to rise within without having to explain it, as a real connection to oneself. And from a Jungian perspective, we know the unconscious always seeks what promises psychic expansion. A mysterious smile becomes a living symbol, a doorway to something greater, something that cannot be owned or fully explained. The conscious mind looks for answers, but the unconscious longs for open paths, for spaces where curiosity, discovery, and mystery can flourish. And in that smile, which doesn't reveal everything but hints at infinite inner landscapes, one of the most powerful and quietest magnets of the human soul is born. Ask yourself, does your smile arise from inner fullness, or does it sometimes become an automatic expression seeking approval? And if a smile can already stir something in the soul of the other, imagine the power of a gaze that doesn't look away. A gaze that carries and connects on a level that words can never reach. There are glances that merely brush past, and those that silently pierce through masks and awaken something deep, something rarely visible. From Jung's perspective, the human unconscious is constantly projecting parts of itself onto others. We don't see the other as they truly are. We see what our own psyche activates in them. And the gaze is one of the most direct channels for this process. A calm, sincere, and sustained gaze without haste is more than just eye contact. It's a door, a silent invitation. I am here. I see you. Do you dare to see yourself too? When a woman holds her gaze without fear, without demand, she radiates something that far surpasses logic. She emanates a field, presence, openness, and courage. Jung taught that the unconscious in others perceives not only what it desires but also what it fears. That's why a genuine gaze, free of masks and defenses, can be a revolutionary act capable of stirring attraction, discomfort, or a deep longing for connection. Such a gaze says, you can remain with yourself, even in vulnerability. You don't need to flee the truth of the moment. And this quiet courage works on a level that words can never reach. A sincere question for you: do you allow yourself to truly see and be seen, or do you sometimes feel the urge to look away, to protect yourself? And while an authentic gaze can create instant connection, there's something even more delicate and profound: the way you show your vulnerability without turning it into a silent cry for help. Showing vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a deep expression of inner strength. From the psychology of Carl Jung, we know that what we repress in the unconscious does not disappear. It shows up in our relationships, our attachments, in recurring patterns. A woman who allows her vulnerability without turning it into a plea, drama, or demand sends a quiet yet powerful signal to the unconscious of the other. I can hold my own humanity. True vulnerability doesn't come from a desperate need to be rescued. It comes from the courage to be seen as you are, without makeup, without justification, without strategy. When you allow yourself to show your true emotions without exaggerating or suppressing them, you offer the other a mirror that reflects what it means to truly dwell within oneself. Jung said that what we do not accept in ourselves seeks healing through the other, but when vulnerability comes from self-acceptance, the connection that arises from it is genuine. You don't have to beg for love. You don't need to dramatize your wound. You only need to allow yourself to be whole, even in your imperfection. Pause and ask yourself, do you allow yourself to be seen through your real humanity? Or do you feel that your vulnerability becomes a silent request for recognition? When vulnerability is offered as a gift, not a demand, it opens an even more sacred space, a space where mystery can breathe and connection can stay alive. In a world flooded with constant self-promotion, mystery has become a rare and deeply magnetic energy. From Carl Jung's view, it's the symbols, the ones that are not completely explained, the ones that remain partly hidden, that activate our imagination and our unconscious the most. The human spirit doesn't only crave what it understands, it yearns for what it senses, for what promises hidden meaning, for what hints without fully revealing. A woman who doesn't show every part of her inner world right away, who allows herself to open certain areas only to those who prove worthy, creates an attraction that can't be staged or imitated. Mystery isn't a strategy nor a tactic. It's the natural expression of a soul that knows its inner value and understands that her inner universe is not for everyone. In Jungian psychology, mystery functions as an archetypal symbol, a guarded entrance that doesn't reject but invites inner unfolding. It awakens the impulse to explore, to discover, not just a person, but an entire inner world. Those who don't reveal everything immediately allow connection to grow layer by layer in depth and meaning. A presence that holds something back keeps the flame of curiosity and desire alive. A question for you. Do you preserve spaces of mystery for yourself? Or do you sometimes feel the need to reveal everything too soon in order to be understood? And beyond the magnetism of mystery, there is an even more powerful energy, the sense of inner stability that dwells in silence. There is an invisible strength in those who have learned to inhabit their own worth, an energy that doesn't shout, doesn't impose itself, and doesn't seek confirmation. It simply exists. According to Jung's depth psychology, this inner stability arises through the process of individuation. It's not a conscious act of proving worth. It's the result of deep inner reconciliation. A woman who walks, speaks, and breathes from this silent confidence doesn't need to justify her existence or prove her value. Her mere presence sets boundaries, evokes respect, and naturally creates attraction. Jung emphasized that integrated energy is perceived by others on an unconscious level, a coherent energy that doesn't fluctuate with external validation. True security is not declared with words. It shows in how you enter a room, in how you calmly say no, in how you remain steady even when your environment expects you to adjust. When you are anchored in your own source of value, you don't need to chase, demand, or over-explain. You simply are. And this calm authenticity becomes a quiet beacon for those who are ready to recognize it. Have you ever reflected on where your sense of security comes from? From a desire to be acknowledged, or from a true connection with yourself? And when that security is inhabited naturally, an even brighter light arises, authenticity that does not need to be proclaimed to be felt. In a society obsessed with external image, being authentic has become a quiet act of resistance. According to Carl Jung's deep psychological perspective, we all live in constant tension between ourself, our true inner being, and the persona, the social mask we wear to belong. A woman who lives from herself radiates a genuineness that needs no words. She doesn't announce her independence, doesn't display her strength, doesn't dramatize her emotions. She simply inhabits her truth. Jung taught that individuation is not about rejecting the persona, but about not confusing it with our true identity. To be authentic means recognizing when we're acting from adaptation and consciously returning to our inner center. When a woman allows herself to be exactly as she is, imperfect, evolving, deep, without apologizing, without justifying, without strategy, she emits a vibration that touches the unconscious directly, the energy of someone who has stopped fighting herself. And this serenity, this naturalness, this inner coherence generate a magnetism that can't be imitated or forced. I invite you to ask yourself, do you live from your true essence, or do you sometimes lose yourself in the role you think you're supposed to play? And when authenticity becomes second nature, a final, silent posture reveals itself. A posture that not only attracts but also protects. The ability to quietly withdraw when necessary. Not everything valuable comes from staying. Sometimes you protect what is most sacred by knowing when it's time to go. From the perspective of Jungian depth psychology, individuation is an ongoing act of inner discernment. Knowing when to stay and when to let go. A woman who withdraws silently from a space that no longer nourishes her essence is not fleeing. She is not punishing. She is choosing herself. The silent retreat is not a sign of coldness, but an act of deepest self-love. It's the recognition that the most important loyalty is to one's own growth, not to a connection that limits inner unfolding. Jung said, "What we do not make conscious controls our lives, and we call it fate." Staying in relationships that no longer resonate with our true self means handing the wheel to the shadow. Withdrawal, on the other hand, is a conscious act, a sign of respect for life's cycles, a declaration of trust that leaving a space whose time has passed will open new doors, doors that better align with who you truly are and what you are meant to become. When a woman decides to walk away, without drama, without resentment, her energy expands, and paradoxically, she becomes even more unforgettable. Do you know how to walk away in peace when something no longer honors your essence? Or do you tend to hold on, hoping the other will validate your worth? Because within all these silent gestures, staying, looking, smiling, inhabiting your truth, leaving, pulses a deeper truth. The unconscious force that weaves the connections that truly matter. Maybe after this journey you recognize something that was always there. But in silence, true attraction doesn't arise from effort. It's not staged, it's not performed. It comes from the level of connection you hold with yourself. From the quiet respect you offer your own energy. From the serenity of living your truth, even when no one is watching. As Carl Jung taught, everything that we do not make conscious appears in our life as fate. And it is our quietest postures, the ones we hardly ever reflect upon, that most deeply touch the unconscious of the other, the gaze that lingers, the smile that holds secrets, the vulnerability that doesn't plead, the mystery that doesn't explain itself, the security that doesn't seek validation, the authenticity that doesn't perform, the retreat that doesn't dramatize. Each gesture, each vibration, each silence is an expression of your unconscious energy in motion. And this energy cannot be played, imitated, or learned from a manual. It grows within you. Through the deep decision to no longer chase love, but to embody it first within yourself. This is how a connection is born that is not superficial, not transactional, not fleeting, but a connection that resonates on invisible levels, and precisely for that reason, leaves unforgettable marks. So now I ask you from another perspective, which of these attitudes do you already feel alive within you, and which one inspires you to expand your quiet energy even further? Tell me in the comments, because maybe the first true act of connection isn't about attracting the other, but about remembering yourself and letting your essence speak, even when you say nothing. If this journey has touched you, subscribe to the channel and continue exploring with me the depths of the unconscious ocean. There is a lie that women have been living for decades, and this lie is sabotaging their love lives in ways they can't even imagine. For years I've heard the same question repeated in countless ways during therapy sessions. What do men really want? And every time I hear this question, I feel a mix of compassion and frustration, because the question itself reveals the deeper issue. The truth is that women have learned to ask themselves what men want, when in reality they should be asking, who am I really? They've been taught to shape their personalities based on what they think is attractive, when what truly captivates a mature man is exactly the opposite, a woman who refuses to mold herself for anyone. In over 3 decades of guiding people through therapy, I've witnessed a fascinating transformation. I've seen women who came to me exhausted from trying to decode men turn into natural magnets of genuine attraction the moment they decided to stop trying. And it wasn't magic, it was applied neuroscience. The male brain, especially after the age of 35, develops very sophisticated authenticity detectors. It has experienced enough shallow encounters, performances, and emotional masks to develop an almost instinctive sensitivity to what is real. When a mature man encounters an authentic woman, Something deep and visceral is triggered in his limbic system. This reaction isn't random, it corresponds to very specific neurological patterns related to emotional safety and relational stability. A man who has been through complex relationships seeks signs of emotional reliability, and authenticity is the most powerful signal there is. But authenticity isn't just about being natural. The kind of authenticity that creates true psychological excitement has very specific components. Most women aren't even aware of them. The first of these components is what I have observed in hundreds of successful cases: emotional presence without the need for external validation. Imagine a woman who can hold a deep conversation without the anxiety of needing to be liked. Who can express a contrary opinion without fearing rejection? Who can sit in silence without feeling the need to fill it with empty words? This kind of emotional solidity triggers a response in the male brain that I call active relaxation. He relaxes because he senses emotional safety, but he's also activated because what is rare becomes magnetic in a world full of superficial interactions. Over the years, I've noticed an interesting pattern in couples who come to therapy. Men describe their most successful partners using words like calm, grounded, and real. They never use terms like perfect, or impressive, or spectacular. Male psychological arousal is fueled by substance, not by spectacle. This brings us to the second key component I've identified, what I call unmasked joy. I'm not talking about being happy all the time or faking optimism. I'm referring to a genuine ability to find enjoyment in the everyday, to create lightness without forcing it, to laugh at one's own flaws without self-pity. This kind of joy has a fascinating neurological effect on the male brain. It activates the same areas stimulated by natural rewards, creating what neuroscientists call positive conditioning. A man begins to associate that woman's presence with pleasant, emotional states, not because she manipulates him, but through natural emotional resonance. But I've seen something even deeper. Unmasked joy is only possible when there is peace with one's own story. A woman who has processed her past, who has integrated her wounds without turning them into her identity, who can talk about her life without victimizing or glorifying herself, radiates a calmness that is felt, sensed, breathed. And it is profoundly soothing to a man seeking emotional stability. Let me share something that completely changed how I understand mature attraction. A few years ago, a patient told me something I've never forgotten. She said, "I stopped worrying about whether he liked me," and she started focusing on whether she liked herself. In that one sentence lies one of the deepest truths about the psychology of attraction. When a woman stops being in constant performance mode and starts evaluating whether the man in front of her deserves her time and energy, an energetic shift happens. The man stops evaluating her and starts wanting to prove his own worth. This reversal of dynamics is incredibly powerful because it aligns with very deep psychological principles. The third element that generates authentic psychological arousal is communication from the emotional center. I've listened to thousands of hours of couple conversations, and I can immediately tell when a woman is speaking from her center versus speaking from her anxiety. The difference is noticeable, not just in what she says, but in the rhythm, the tone, the pauses. When a woman communicates from her emotional center, every word carries specific weight. There's no rush to convince, no urgency to impress, no fear of being misunderstood. There is a calm confidence that what she has to say is worth hearing. This kind of communication creates a very particular response in a man, the sense that he's in the presence of someone truly worth listening to. Centered communication also includes the ability to listen without an agenda. Most people listen in order to respond, give advice, or prove that they understand. A woman who has developed genuine emotional presence listens in order to understand, to be present, to create connection. This quality of listening is extraordinarily rare and thus extraordinarily valuable. I've noticed that men describe conversations with these women using words like deep, meaningful, different. Not because they talk about complex topics, but because the quality of presence they bring to the conversation transforms it. A discussion about something as simple as the weather can become a moment of genuine connection when real presence is there. This brings us to a crucial insight I've observed throughout decades of therapeutic work. Mature men are not psychologically aroused by women who need to be rescued, entertained, or constantly validated. They are drawn to women who have developed what I call emotional sovereignty. Emotional sovereignty is not cold independence. It is the ability to manage your own emotional state without outsourcing it to someone else. It's being able to feel sadness without blaming, frustration without attacking, joy without needing the other person to validate it by feeling the same. This sovereignty creates a fascinating paradox. The more emotionally self-sufficient a woman is, the more desirable she becomes. Neurologically, this has a clear explanation. The male brain interprets emotional sovereignty as a signal of high genetic quality and relational stability. On an unconscious level, it perceives that this woman won't create unnecessary drama, won't stir up conflict over unresolved emotional needs, and won't turn the relationship into an emotional battlefield. But emotional sovereignty shows up in very concrete ways that many women overlook. One of the most powerful is the ability to have deep conversations without turning them into therapy sessions. I've seen extraordinary women lose a man's interest because they confused emotional intimacy with emotional dumping. Authentic emotional intimacy is built gradually, with measured revelations, with vulnerabilities shared at the right time, with a depth that invites reciprocity rather than overwhelming with one-sided intensity. A mature man is drawn to a woman with whom he can build intimacy, not one who demands instant emotional closeness. I remember a patient who came to my practice devastated because men kept pulling away after just a few dates. As we explored her behavior patterns, we discovered that she had a tendency to share her entire traumatic life story by the second date. Not because she was manipulative, but because she had confused vulnerability with intimacy. True vulnerability is magnetic, but only when it matches the level of established trust. Sharing too much too soon doesn't show authenticity. It shows a lack of emotional boundaries, and emotional boundaries are essential for maintaining lasting psychological attraction. This brings me to the fourth element I've identified, the ability to create what I call sustained curiosity. I've observed that women who maintain a man's psychological arousal over time are those who remain a partial enigma, not because they're playing games or being artificially mysterious, but because they are constantly growing, evolving, and discovering new parts of themselves. Sustained curiosity is fueled by genuine individuality. A woman who maintains her own interests, develops her own perspectives, and has independent experiences becomes a constant source of novelty. She isn't predictable, not because she's chaotic, but because she's alive, in motion, and in a continuous process of self-discovery. I've noticed that men describe this phenomenon in very similar ways. She always surprises me. I never know exactly what she's going to say. She sees things in a unique way. This controlled unpredictability is deeply stimulating to the male brain, which is wired to solve problems and detect patterns. The fundamental difference between authentic mystery and manufactured mystery lies in their origin. The former is born from inner richness, the latter from strategy. Authentic mystery is the natural result of a woman who has layers, who has depth, who has areas of her life and personality that are revealed gradually. Manufactured mystery is just the calculated withholding of information. A crucial part of sustained curiosity is what I call inner life richness. A woman who reads, reflects, holds formed opinions on a variety of topics, who can engage in conversations about art, philosophy, politics, or any area that genuinely interests her, becomes an intellectually stimulating partner. But there is a fifth element I consider fundamental: the ability to create what I call emotional refuge without therapy. I've seen relationships fail because women confused the role of a partner with the role of a therapist. A man needs to be able to express his vulnerabilities without feeling like he's in a therapy session. True emotional refuge is created through presence, not interpretation, through empathetic listening, not unsolicited advice, through unconditional acceptance, not attempts to fix or improve. When a man finds a woman who can be present with his imperfections without trying to change them, something deep within his attachment system is activated. This capacity for emotional refuge is directly tied to a woman's emotional maturity. An emotionally mature woman does not feel responsible for fixing her partner's problems, does not interpret his emotional states as personal attacks, and does not need him to always be at his best to feel safe in the relationship. A few years ago, I worked with a couple where the man shared something deeply revealing. He said, "With her, I can be human. I don't have to be perfect. I don't always have to be strong. I don't have to protect her from my difficult moments. I can just be me." The ability to let the other person be fully human is extraordinarily rare and profoundly valuable. And this leads us to a key distinction, the difference between emotional support and emotional fusion. Emotional support maintains healthy boundaries, respects the other's autonomy, and offers presence without losing one's identity. Emotional fusion, on the other hand, breeds codependency, relational anxiety, and eventually unconscious rejection. I've observed that men feel deeply drawn to women who can be close without merging, who can offer companionship without intrusion, who can love without losing themselves. This ability to love from a place of personal integrity is magnetic because it's rare, and what is rare, once again, becomes valuable. The sixth element I've identified is the ability to maintain what I call emotional erotic tension. I don't mean manipulation or psychological games. I mean the capacity to maintain a space of mystery, to avoid revealing everything immediately, to dose intimacy in such a way that there's always something left to discover. This emotional erotic tension is preserved when a woman has her own life, when she isn't constantly available, when she maintains private and individual spaces. It's not calculated coldness, it's personal wholeness, which naturally creates desire and anticipation. Over the years, I've noticed that relationships that lose excitement quickly are those where one partner, often the woman, becomes entirely transparent and available from the start. Total transparency kills mystery. Without mystery, curiosity fades, and with it, psychological arousal. Emotional erotic tension is also tied to what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. When a woman is always available, always predictable, always giving the same response, the male brain adapts. But when there's variation, moments of closeness mixed with personal space, neurological activation is maintained. A key concept I've developed through my work is what I call selective availability. A magnetic woman is not equally available to everyone. She has standards, she has criteria, she consciously chooses where and with whom she invests her time and emotional energy. This selective availability is not arrogance or disdain, it's self-respect. It's the understanding that your time, your attention, and your emotional energy are valuable resources that should be offered deliberately. A mature man respects and is attracted to a woman who values herself enough not to make herself indiscriminately available. But there is a seventh element that I consider the most powerful of all, the ability to generate what I call mutual inspiration. I've observed that the most successful couples are those where both partners inspire each other to become better versions of themselves, not through demands or criticism, but through personal example. A woman who lives her own life with passion, who pursues her dreams with determination, who treats herself with respect and kindness, automatically inspires a man to raise his own standards, not out of competition, but through emotional contagion. Personal excellence is magnetic because it is rare. This mutual inspiration is based on what I call reciprocal admiration. When a woman has cultivated admirable qualities, she doesn't just attract admiration, she also feels admiration for her partner. And this dynamic of mutual admiration is the most powerful fuel for sustained psychological attraction. I've seen relationships that maintain passion for decades because both people remain admirable. They keep growing, keep surprising each other, keep inspiring each other to reach higher versions of themselves. This doesn't happen by chance, it happens through conscious choice. Mutual inspiration also involves what I call parallel growth, two people growing in the same direction while maintaining their individuality, supporting each other's personal development without losing themselves in the process. I recall a couple who came to my office after 15 years together, not because of a problem, but because they wanted to deepen their connection. What impressed me most was how each spoke about the other, not as someone predictable or fully known, but as someone still evolving, still fascinating, still worthy of admiration. The eighth element I've identified is the ability to maintain what I call emotional generosity without personal sacrifice. I've observed that the most psychologically attractive women are those who can give deeply without giving themselves away, who can be generous without becoming martyrs. This emotional generosity shows up in small things, in the ability to genuinely celebrate their partner's success, in offering support without expecting immediate reciprocity, in creating special moments without making them feel like obligations. But this only works when it comes from personal abundance, never from emotional lack. The difference is crucial. Generosity from abundance is magnetic because it's free, spontaneous, and genuine. Generosity from scarcity is manipulative as it tries to fill internal voids through the other person, and this is perceived unconsciously, leading to rejection rather than attraction. Authentic emotional generosity also includes the ability to give space when needed, to not take distance personally, to understand that mature love includes natural rhythms of closeness and separation, which are both healthy and necessary. One essential aspect of this generosity is what I call celebration without appropriation. A magnetic woman can celebrate her partner's success without needing to take ownership of it. She can be proud of him without tying his achievements to her own value. This emotional independence is incredibly attractive. And finally, the ninth element I consider fundamental, the ability to maintain what I call conscious emotional stability. I don't mean the absence of emotions or emotional perfection. I mean the ability to feel emotions without being ruled by them. An emotionally stable woman can feel sadness without sinking into depression. She can feel anger without exploding in aggression. She can feel joy without becoming manic. This kind of conscious emotional regulation is deeply reassuring for a mature man seeking a stable relationship. Conscious emotional stability is built over years of self-knowledge, personal growth, and learning about one's own emotional patterns. It's not something that happens overnight, but it may be the most valuable investment a woman can make in herself if she is seeking a mature and lasting relationship. For decades, I've observed that men may initially be attracted to emotional intensity, but they build lasting relationships with emotional stability. Emotional intensity is like sugar. It gives a quick burst of energy, but it doesn't sustain. Emotional stability is like protein. It provides long-lasting nourishment. Stability also means the ability to maintain perspective during conflict, to avoid dramatizing everyday situations, and to distinguish between what truly matters and what's simply an annoyance. This emotional maturity creates a safe and predictable relational environment. A concept I've developed to describe this is what I call a calming presence. A woman who has achieved genuine emotional stability radiates a calm that is contagious. Her presence doesn't create anxiety, doesn't stir up drama, doesn't add turbulence to a man's life. On the contrary, it brings serenity and balance. This calming presence is especially valuable for men with stressful jobs, complex family responsibilities, or demanding public lives. Coming home to a space of emotional peace is extraordinarily valuable and therefore extraordinarily attractive. But emotional stability doesn't mean the absence of passion or intensity. It means having the ability to choose when and how to express emotions in ways that are constructive for the relationship rather than destructive. All of these elements are not techniques you apply externally. They are qualities that are developed internally through a deep process of self-discovery and personal growth. They cannot be faked because they come from real transformations of personality and character. True psychological arousal in a man isn't triggered through manipulation. It's triggered by becoming a woman who is genuinely attractive. And a genuinely attractive woman isn't perfect. She is authentic. She's not invulnerable. She's courageous. She's not coldly independent. She is warmly sovereign. Over the years, I've noticed that women who cultivate these qualities not only attract higher quality men, but also feel more fulfilled within themselves. The work of personal development that leads to authentic attraction also leads to personal fulfillment. There is a direct correlation between the level of a woman's personal growth and the quality of the men she attracts, not because she's chasing better men, but because her own evolution makes her magnetic to people who have also done the inner work. Through my decades of practice, I've observed that the most successful relationships are formed between people who have reached similar levels of emotional maturity, not necessarily in terms of external achievements, but in terms of inner development, self-awareness, and the capacity to love in a mature way. After all these years of supporting people in their personal growth and relationships, I've reached a conclusion that might seem paradoxical. The woman who most deeply excites a mature man is the one who least needs to excite him. She has built a life so full, so rich, so satisfying, that a man feels privileged to be invited into it. This personal abundance isn't selfishness, it's maturity. It's not coldness, it's security. It's not manipulation, it's authenticity. And in a world where most people live from emotional lack, personal abundance becomes naturally magnetic. Personal abundance shows up in many ways: in the ability to enjoy one's own company, in having independent goals and dreams, in maintaining meaningful friendships, in cultivating personal talents and skills. A woman who lives from a place of abundance doesn't need a relationship to feel complete, but she can deeply enrich one when she chooses it. In the end, true psychological arousal isn't something you do, it's something you are. It's not a strategy you apply, it's a way of life you build. And this way of life, rooted in self-knowledge, self-acceptance, and continuous growth, doesn't just attract mature men, it transforms them, inspires them, invites them to become better versions of themselves. And that perhaps is the true magic of mature love. It's not about finding someone to complete you, it's about becoming someone who inspires others to complete themselves. When two complete people meet, they don't merge, they amplify each other, creating something greater than the sum of their parts. This kind of mutual transformation is the natural result when two people have done the inner work needed to truly love themselves. Because only when we have learned to truly love ourselves can we offer authentic love to another human being.